Hello everyone, welcome to SMG, and I am joined by David Friend, who's a pop culture and entertainment reporter for the Canadian Press. Thanks for joining us, David.
Thanks.
How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, and yourself?
Not too bad. We appreciate you joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Let's hear about your background a little bit here, because you've been in the reporting business for quite a while, but in different fields.
Yeah, I actually started when I was about 11 years old. When I was at school, we didn't have a newspaper, so I sort of launched a newsletter and convinced my classmates to subscribe to it. So I would go around every couple of weeks collecting their spare change, and I would give them a newsletter that was about 20 pages long with like reviews of movies and like the latest entertainment news at the time. This was like early to mid 90s, so it was pretty pre-internet for most people.
Yeah.
And that sort of led to me forming a website where I covered the entertainment industry for about 12 years. But it was like back during the days where most people are on dial-up, so my parents would be like, get off the line, we need to use the phone. And I'd be like, I just gotta file this story. So it was kind of like this weird time in entertainment.
Isn't that crazy though? Like, we definitely don't miss those times.
No, and
Dial-up.
it was pretty fun because I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Almost Famous.
I have.
There's a scene where Patrick Fugit answers the phone and they ask to speak with him and he's like, this is him. That was me at like 11 or 12 years old because people thought I was an adult, but I couldn't tell them the truth because they wouldn't take me seriously.
That's right.
So I'd be talking to all the studios and things with my deep voice.
That's fantastic. That is fantastic. So throughout your career then, how has networking helped you in your career?
It's been pretty helpful. I think how I approached it was that I make the connections and just get to know people on a personal level, and then it sort of paid off in that respect. I know when they tell you when you enroll in university to just like connect with your professors and know everyone that you can, I just found that it was more organic than that. If you were out there at events or if you just talk to people about your interests, people would learn that you were passionate about what you wanted to do with your life, and then they would sort of support you. So I mean, I got my job or my internship at Variety in Los Angeles with the help of someone who lived down in Los Angeles who sort of like pointed out my application for the internship program and kind of said, well, you might want to pay attention to that one because, I mean, as we know these days, there's like a stack of 20 to 50 applicants for jobs or internships, and some way you need to make yours stand out from the rest. So that's kind of how I did it. And I mean, my first job at the Canadian Press in the business department was also, from what I understand, and this was like kind of behind the scenes, but it was a professor that was saying, hey, this guy is a good worker. He has a lot of history behind him in terms of like delivering. So you might want to pay attention to him. So, yeah. I mean, it does come down to that interview. You've got to prove yourself in the interview and convince them that you're worthwhile, but it certainly helps if you have 2 or 3 people that can vouch for you and be enthusiastic about your career.
Yeah.
For me personally, it was kind of like a tug of war because when I started as a teenager with that website that I talked about and then interning at Variety, I had a sole focus on entertainment in some respects. And with Variety, it was a little more business oriented, like the studios and sort of behind the scenes within the industry. So when I got the job at the Canadian Press in the business department, I had to convince them that I knew how to cover business. And there's only so much that they can teach you in school. And then when you get into the industry, it's kind of like working from the ground up. So I had to learn like the TSX and certain things about stocks and all the lingo. I didn't have that in school because most universities in Canada that teach journalism don't really put much of an emphasis on serious business reporting. Back then, I still wanted to do entertainment, and I sort of dabbled in it on the side with Variety, working as a freelancer, and I had a web series online that like broke down the career of a Swedish film director. So I just like kind of kept it in the back, knowing that maybe it would come up again.
Yeah.
So when the opportunity at the Canadian Press to cover entertainment came up, I was like, well, I'm still doing all this stuff. They knew I was passionate about entertainment, and they knew that I was like obsessed with movies and music.
Yeah.
So the fit was there.
Can you kind of describe how celebrities are using social media nowadays? Like the different ways they're using it?
Yeah, it's interesting. I found that, especially in the past year and a half, celebrities use it as sort of like a press release service. Like when they need to put out a statement, whether it's about someone who they were inspired by who died, or whether it's their latest album, that's how it's launched. Mm-hmm. So where they may have gone to MTV to like reveal their new video in the past, now you just go to social media and post that YouTube link. I even find that sometimes when you're looking for a celebrity to comment on something, their publicist will point you towards their social media, which isn't really ideal because often it's this short little statement that doesn't really have a lot of character to it. But I think that some of them see it as a way to sort of get around doing media coverage, and I think it's a very few celebrities that can actually, fit into that kind of objective that they would all like to have, because I think it's less labor, it's less time that they have to spend. But it can sometimes mean that their personality, to me at least, is a little more one-dimensional if you're only posting on social media.
Now, what do you think's going on with Taylor Swift? Because honestly, David, I'll tell you straight, for many years I thought Taylor Swift was an angel, sent from heaven. And now, what's going on? Is she okay?
How do you feel now?
I'm spooked.
Is it the devil side that's coming in? Is that how you feel?
I think that would add to it, yeah.
Well, aside from my opinions on her music, I'll say that what she has done with this new single, I feel, is very risky. And I think if you look back over the past year or so, there's been a sort of a negative reaction from listeners, it seems, to these sort of songs that deal with like personal spats. If you look back at Katy Perry's single Swish Swish, it didn't get the kind of reception that she hoped for. Even some of Kanye's stuff didn't. And I think that comes down to streaming. Because with streaming, you can see how long people stay interested in that track, because the numbers are there. They're literally presented. And if people hear it and then it doesn't resonate with them, that song can fall really quickly, which is exactly what you saw with Katy Perry's music. I wouldn't be surprised if Taylor, even though she's massively popular, hits those sorts of stumbles. If people don't feel that her new single is a song that they can relate to, they might stop listening to it.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with Swiftie. Let's talk about Netflix a little bit. Netflix has completely revolutionized pay TV. It completely wiped out the old school model of the blockbuster video. It's the ultimate streaming service. So would you say that Netflix is thriving right now? I mean, it has original content every 2 weeks, it seems.
That's the risk, I think, because they have to keep this momentum going. People are going to expect to see them constantly churning out stuff. But a lot of their content, to me at least, I don't know about you, but it's totally under the radar. There's so much coming out every week that a lot of people miss some of the series or the films. Have you watched any Netflix films recently?
No, I like the comedy specials in terms of the original content. Yeah.
They've been putting out movies every couple weeks. They acquire them at like Sundance. They'll probably buy some at TIFF. And I think this is their plan for several years, but they haven't had like that big hit. They haven't had the huge awards movie. So Netflix still has some work to get into everybody's mindset, I think.
Who do you see as their competition?
Amazon for sure. If we're talking about Canada, Amazon has a lot of room to grow in terms of streaming, and they have a lot of series that they're planning to roll out over the coming months. I think there's someone to watch, but it's sort of an open game in Canada. Netflix has owned the space for so long that I think we kind of accept that they are the dominant, and they are for now. But so many other companies could come in unexpectedly. With the digital world, things can change so quickly that somebody that we aren't even thinking of today could 9 or 10 months down the road be a huge player.
For sure. Now, they were both sitcoms, but other than that, they didn't really have too much in common. They were very different shows. But in your opinion, during the 1990s, during that must-see TV period, who ruled television? Was it Seinfeld or was it Friends?
I watched all of Thursday night. I even watched The Single Guy, which was between Friends and Seinfeld.
Yeah.
And sometimes I would watch Veronica's Closet, which was after Seinfeld. I mean, nobody remembers these shows.
I don't remember that one, no.
So I kind of have to say, it just depends who you talk to, whether it's Seinfeld. I think Seinfeld kind of like skews towards older viewers. A couple years ago when Netflix put Friends on the service, I happened to be at Waterloo, the university there, covering a BlackBerry story, and I noticed that all of the students in the cafeteria were watching Friends, and I was like, what the heck? Because a lot of these kids weren't even old enough to watch the show when it was originally on TV, but something about the show was really resonating with them. Right. So I guess if I had to pick a winner between the two, it would be Friends, because it seems to be just as relevant now. That said, I love Seinfeld. I think it's hilarious. It's still as funny today as it was when it first aired. So can't we just say that they're both equal?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like they're very different shows, right? Speaking of Netflix, though, like I had never watched Friends, like the full series of Friends, until it was on Netflix. So, and it was so funny because I had seen maybe like 5 to 10 episodes during its original run, but every time I would tune in, it would be that same episode.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I've seen this. And then it came out on Netflix and I watched the whole thing, and it was fantastic. I have nothing against Friends, but Seinfeld will always be the best, and that's my opinion.
Fair enough.
Yeah, okay. There you go. Give me your best pitch for the best TV series finale and the worst TV series finale.
Oh man, the worst. Okay, I'll go with the best. My choice is not going to be popular, but I'm going to go with it anyways. 6 Feet Under. I feel like the biggest challenge with a series finale is wrapping it up. I mean, we've seen time and time again, a show has ended and people have been like, that's what you decided to end with? Sopranos, Breaking Bad are just two that come to mind immediately. But 6 Feet Under, to me, really tied up the story. It showed where everybody's lives went. It was hugely emotional for anyone who watched the series, and it just felt like the perfect ending.
Those were exactly my three.
Oh, really?
For the best series finales. 6 Feet Under wrapped it up nicely. Breaking Bad I thought was perfect. I thought the whole series was perfect. And what was the other one you said?
Sopranos.
The Sopranos, yeah. So I watched that after its original run. I think if I was watching it during the original run, I thought my cable would have went out because of the ending, like most people did at the time. But I thought it was brilliant after.
People were angry about that, though.
Very angry, very angry. Yeah.
They want answers. I think that's what 6 Feet Under provided, was all of the answers. Everything was tied up, and people cried. I just remember people talking to me the next day and being like, I was in tears.
Yeah.
But worst?
Worst. Let's hear the worst.
I don't know.
I'll tell you mine while you think.
Okay.
I think the worst, in my opinion, is Dexter. Did you see that?
I didn't know.
Okay. Well, let's just say he's a serial killer, but believe it or not, he's the good guy. And for about 5 seasons, it was great. And then the last 4, it went completely downhill. And the last scene, spoiler alert, plug your ears, he decides to become a lumberjack. And I was just like, wow, what a writer's meeting that must have been.
Is it the actual ending?
That's the last scene.
Because you could be playing a trick on me right now, I wouldn't know.
That's true. But that's what happened. I was just like, what happened to this show? Because John Lithgow was in a season of Dexter, and it was absolutely insanely brilliant because he's a comedic actor, as we all know. And then he turned into a monster, and it was really well done. And then the show went downhill. But enough about me. What is your worst?
I don't have to watch that show now.
No, it's done. Okay. Don't worry about it.
This is kind of a cop-out answer, but I think the worst is when a show is canceled and I'm totally invested in it.
That's the worst. Yeah.
Deadwood, anything where there's like some sort of open ending that wasn't the intention just drives me crazy. And I used to have a rule, I can't really do it anymore, but I would only watch a series that I knew was going to have a finale. Because I just couldn't deal with a show like pulling the rug out from under me and having to go on with my life the next day.
That's a very good point. Before we close here, just in terms of being an entertainment reporter or a news reporter or a business reporter, any advice you'd give to people just coming out of school right now looking for jobs?
I think that persistence is key. If you really want to do it and you know that this is the career you want to take on, then just keep at it. Find a way that if you can't do it as your day job, maybe you can do it in the evening and make a career out of it over time. With anything, persistence usually has some sort of payoff. I found that it did for me, at least.